Got this Cadillac in the garage, just got dropped off. And let me show you what's going on with this thing, okay? So it's got a few different complaints. Number one, check engine light is on. It has a misfire, and I'll show you guys that just in a second. Second complaint is apparently the trunk doesn't open from the button right here. I don't hear any actuation going on back there. Third complaint, turn the engine off. See this glass is down? This glass was not down when I turned the engine on. So apparently every time you turn off the engine, the rear glass goes down. There's another customer complaint. She's saying the headlights are acting funny. She took it to that same shop that's been doing all the work. The headlights were actually filled with water. So they changed, put brand new headlights in, right? Everything was working fine for like 3 or 4 days, and then the bulbs went out. Let's go ahead and set up the engine. And of course, there goes our check engine light down there because of that misfire I was telling you about. And yeah, I can kind of hear it and feel a slight shaking. I could kind of feel that misfire. The engine is running. And nothing. Oh wait, oh, well, I was gonna back out, but there is something. Number 5 is misfiring. And it appears to be only number 5. All right, let's see if this thing has a clear flood mode. See if we can listen to how it's cranking. All right, sounds pretty consistent to me. I was expecting that because the mist is not a dead mist. You can see it's counting up slowly, meaning, you know, it's not due to like low compression or something silly like that where it would always be missing. It's not. Guys, I'm not looking through this lady's paperwork, okay? She gave me all this stuff to look at when she dropped the car off. So I'm trying to hide any personal information here. But basically, you can see her total was $1,800. Wow. So it says here that they changed all 6 platinum spark plugs, of course, and 1 ignition coil. I don't know what coil they changed, but I'm hoping that if we pull the cover off of the engine, we might be able to tell which coil looks relatively new. So let's go have a look at that. All right, so I just took the cover off of the engine, and it's got all 6 ignition coils brand new, and they're all Duralast from AutoZone. You see the giant D. So anyway, I misread the paper. So it says ignition coil pack. It says 1, but the total is like $325. And I went on AutoZone's website, looked up that exact part, and it cost like $311 from AutoZone. So the reason why it says 1 is because they sell a 6-pack. So it's literally 1 item they're buying with 6 coils in it. So that makes sense. This, guys, the OEM stuff, it is highly unlikely that all 6 coils failed at the same time, or I don't even consider it part of a tune-up. I can't tell you how many customers came to me and say, hey, I want a tune-up. I want you to change all 8 of my ignition coils. And I told them, whoa, there's no reason for that. They're like, oh, I just want them changed out of maintenance. I try to explain to people, coils to me are not a maintenance item. They either work or they don't. If they're misfiring and the coil's at fault, fine, change it. But the problem comes when people put all 6 Duralast ignition coils and they grab the original Cadillac ones. And what do? Whoop, right in the trash. Chances are all 6 of those coils were in good condition, better quality. There was no reason to throw them out. And you get rid of good OEM quality parts for this cheap Chinese crap from AutoZone. Really just pushes my buttons to see stuff like this. And this is why I normally don't just throw coil packs at people's car out of maintenance, because to me a coil pack is not a maintenance item. If it works, it works. Leave it alone, especially if you have OEM parts still on your car. I don't know, I'm done ranting about that. Let's find out which one is cylinder number 5. So this thing has all new platinum spark plugs, 6 Duralast ignition coils, and we know number 5 is misfiring. Let me figure out which one is number 5. All right, so it turns out number 5 is the one back here. As you can see, I removed the coil already. I'm just gonna do Swaptronics, guy, because it's super easy to get to. So I'm gonna switch number 5 with this cylinder up front right here. I don't know which one this is. It's probably number 1. Don't quote me on that. Either way, we're gonna try that. We'll look at the scanner real fast, see if number 5 is still misfiring. See, normally I would say the parts are new, so let's go towards something else, right? But the fact that we have AutoZone parts in the mix, can't rule that type of stuff out, guys. Just because it's new doesn't mean crap. I mean, there are OEM parts that are damaged as soon as you put them on or shortly after, and even more so for cheap Chinese parts. All right, so I swapped coils 1 and 5. So far, nothing. Come on, start misfiring. Let me open the garage door before I die in here. Alright guys, so I decided to pull up the history misfires, just for the heck of it. Look at this, cylinder 1, cylinder 2, look at all the misfires on them. Look at 3, 4, 5, 6. Every single cylinder on this car was misfiring. Especially number 5. Number 5 is the highest, as you can see. But as of right now, it's not acting up. So what has changed? And it does seem to be running pretty smooth right now. I don't feel anything. The only thing that has changed is when she got here, I started looking at the car immediately. So the car was hot. And we got a misfire, cylinder 5. And right now, the car has had time to cool off since I was messing with the trunk latch, and we have to get that fixed in the previous video. You saw we had a little fish bite of a misfire on cylinder 5, so that means swapping a coil did not fix it. Of course, it's what I was suspecting. There it goes again. I don't think this is a spark plug issue, but it doesn't hurt to check it. See, the problem is when someone else has been in there, you just don't know what they did. You don't know the type of quality of work. You don't know if someone dropped the spark plug before they put it in. You get what I'm saying? Or you know how some people like to drop spark plugs down the tube and let it, seat where it's supposed to instead of putting in it the correct way? Yeah, I could actually feel when those little fish bites pop up. So I pulled out the spark plug just to have a look at it. I don't see anything that stands out. It's an auto light. I don't know if auto lights belong in a Cadillac, but I don't see anything wrong here. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop it back in. All right, so I decided to look at something else for now because this is not a ignition related misfire. Anyway, we did have a oil pressure sensor code. So let's go back to that and look at that code. Engine oil pressure sensor circuit high voltage. Okay, and when we go to look at that oil pressure sensor, that thing is reading 129 psi. That is not right, guys. That is way too high. I'm not saying that the engine has that high pressure. I'm saying that sensor is not reading correctly. So I'm gonna find this sensor and do a visual inspection on it. Before we go have a visual inspection on that sensor, I did turn the engine off, and look what the sensor is still reading, even with the engine off. Clearly, something is not right here. So this oil pressure sensor lives right below the oil filter housing. You can see the connector for it right there. I got my scanner right here. You can see it's still reading the 129 psi. I'm gonna go ahead and try to unplug the connector off of the sensor. See if that reading changes on the scanner. Alright, so that thing is now unplugged. And we dropped to 0 psi. And I got a feeling the second we plug it back in, we're gonna go right back to that same number. And sure enough, 129. Guys, we just have a bad sensor here. So bad oil pressure sensor. So the reason why I unplugged it is because it shows the integrity of the wiring. It does change its value depending on whether it's plugged in or not. So that's the whole point of that test. And the second you plug it in, it just defaults to 129 psi. That sensor is no good. It should not be nowhere near that high. I would imagine something like, I don't know, 40. I mean, don't quote me, but I want to say somewhere in the 35 to 45 range, something like that. That seems about normal for me. But we are done looking at the oil pressure sensor. It just needs a new sensor for that. All right, so we have a intake air temp circuit high. You can see it says last test passed, this ignition passed. So that might just be like someone unplugged that sensor, maybe like when they were doing a tune-up or something, and who knows, maybe they didn't clear the code. Well, I don't know. But I am going to end up clearing these codes. By the way, I got everything saved already. I think we should do that to see if this air temperature sensor circuit high code comes back. So I've gone ahead and cleared out the codes. Like I said, I saved everything, so we don't got to worry about that. Let's turn the car off. And we're going to go ahead and start it back up. I want to see if there's any codes that pop back immediately. That oil pressure sensor, which is what I would expect to pop back because, yeah, it's reading a crazy high PSI, so that's not normal. All right, so I removed the strut tower brace just to have more access. I want to get to these fuel injectors so we can check the ohm resistance on fuel injector number 5 and also do a fuel pressure drop test, see if maybe number 5 is a leaking injector, who knows. Okay, but the point is the intake manifold is covering the injectors and the fuel rail and all that stuff, so this has to go. You know, what else could be causing a rich condition? Maybe it's not reading enough errors coming in, who knows. So I'm gonna go ahead and take apart the air intake, check the air filter, check the mass airflow sensor. Throttle body is looking pretty dirty. I might go ahead and just clean this while we have it off of the car. The mass airflow sensor looks a little dirty, nothing crazy. Again, I'm gonna go ahead and clean that while it's off of the car. Here's the back side of the throttle body. Let me go ahead and clean this up real fast before we move on. All right, so I cleaned out the mass airflow sensor and the throttle body. You can see it looks way better now. And if we hold it up to the light, you can actually see light come through on both sides of the butterfly. So way better than before. I know some of you are yelling at the screen, well, you idiot. So I was expecting to pull the intake manifold off and the injectors would be right there. I did not think that it didn't even occur to me that this engine is direct injected. So this little diaper in the center does come off. You can see the fuel rail underneath there. But I do believe this is a direct injected engine. I'm not messing with that crap, okay? So here's the thing. Here goes the gasket, right? Came off just like that. And cylinder number 5 is going to be this one back here on the rear left side. So if we go ahead and flip it over, it's going to be right here, number 5. So here's something that I'm noticing. Every other cylinder, the gasket for it looks to be in decent condition. Right here we got a little bit of crap buildup, but nothing major. But number 5, this gasket is severely flattened out and there's a bunch of corrosion and crap buildup inside of here. So hopefully you guys can see that, how bad. And the rest of them aren't nearly as bad. We have a little bit going on here on this cylinder, but again, nothing major. Number 5 looks to be the worst. Now, before I took off the intake manifold, I wanted to do a smoke test on this thing. The reason for that is because I've actually had a car where I had a single cylinder misfire, right? Everything else checked out on that car, like the injector, the coil, the plug. So I ended up doing a smoke test, and it turned out that the intake manifold runner gasket, which is one of these, was actually leaking for that one runner that feeds that cylinder. And the smoke test showed me that on that car. So based off of experience, I wanted to do it on this car, right? But then looking at the design of that intake manifold, how it kind of mushrooms over, I was like, you know what? If there's a leak, I'm not going to be able to see it because of how far the intake manifold just kind of covers everything. I wouldn't be able to tell where is it coming from. But I wish I would have done that test just to have the results, because I really do feel like had I done a smoke test on the intake manifold before taking it apart, I really feel like we would have seen smoke coming out of here because this gasket does look compromised. Of course, I don't have any new parts for it, and it makes no sense to try to put on this old gasket seeing what we are seeing here. So I'm gonna try to source out this gasket. I'll check my local auto parts stores and see if we have it, and then I'll clean up the surfaces and put everything back together. But you know, looking at crap like this, I'm like, dang it, I should have just did the smoke test like I initially thought I was gonna do. That's what I get for skipping a step. All right, so I went to O'Reilly Auto Parts and I ended up getting the entire kit that has the upper and the lower, because guys, when you're in it this deep, it makes no sense to just change the lower gasket and not change the ones that go inside of there. You get what I'm saying? It's like $10 more, just change all of them and do the job right. Okay, and then while I was out, I figured, you know what, that oil pressure sensor, it's not working. Let's see if they have it. So unfortunately, we had to get in the zone, auto zone. So we got the Duralast. They're crap. It is what it is. But still, even a cheap sensor that works, assuming it works, is better than a bad sensor. So let's go ahead, clean all this stuff up. I'll put the new gaskets on and we'll start to put all this crap back together. New gaskets are in place and I cleaned both sides of the lower plenum. See, it looks pretty good where the gaskets are gonna go, so I'll put this back on here. As you can see, I got the intake manifold reinstalled, throttle body's in place. I plugged in everything that it looks like I unplugged. I even got the brand new oil pressure sensor installed. Hopefully you can see that little shiny thing down there. That was a real nightmare to change. The old one actually broke it off trying to remove it because it's that tight of a spot. But it just means I have to be that much more careful to install the new one. It went on, no problems at all. It just took forever. I want to say at least 40 to 60 minutes to get that one sensor on. What a freaking nightmare. Anyway, let me finish putting everything back together. We'll start her up, see how she runs. We'll look at that oil pressure sensor. All right, so let's start her up. No immediate check engine light, so I didn't forget to plug something in. I can't be in here too long like this. I don't want to open the garage door because when I got back from the auto parts store, there was a big old raccoon in front of my garage and I had to sit in the car for like 5 minutes until it left. Yeah, I'm a chicken, so I'm not opening that garage door right now. Anyway, look at the oil pressure sensor. Sweet. No more, I can't remember, what's it, 129 psi? I can't remember, but that looks way better to me. Of course, we are in a cold start, so we got a high idle. Long-term fuel trims, look at it, subtracting fuel. Short-term looks pretty good. I don't feel any misfires at all. It's coming down off of its high idle. Right now it's at about 900 RPM. You know what, let me go ahead and clear the check engine light because it's still, or at least it should still have the codes that were there before. And yes, they are. So let's go ahead and clear them right now. Check it again. Good. Okay, so looking at the long term, we want to see that to continue to drop. Remember before, the long term was at like negative 32. And as it runs, I want to see those numbers. Well, we're already at an improvement because we went from negative 32 to negative 18 on bank 1 and negative 14 on bank 2. Already an improvement. And by the way, I don't feel a single misfire, guys. Running absolutely smooth right now. And you see the oil pressure PSI has come down around 35, which is normal. And that's what I was expecting to see. I think I said 45 before. That might be on the high side, but still, I know it shouldn't be nowhere near 129 psi. So I think I'm done with the whole engine work and check engine light and all that stuff. I don't want to keep her in the car, like I said, for reasons. So I'm not going to open up the garage tonight, but I'm fairly certain that I am done with what I can do for this check engine light. Alright, so I'm out taking the Cadillac converter. Can't tell you how many customers say that. They're like, oh yeah, I need a Cadillac converter put on my car. Anyway, so taking it out for a test drive before the owner comes to pick it up. So just a quick recap. We fixed the trunk. It now opens on the driver door button as well as the key fob. We fixed the headlights. They now work reliably. We fixed the oil pressure sensor that was reading very high, so now that's reading correctly. We fixed the misfires, I can tell you that much, because this thing is running super smooth, hasn't skipped a beat this whole time I've been driving around and letting it idle, as smooth as it can be. Okay, so the misfires, like 100% confident that those things are fixed. As far as the rich codes, we won't really know until the car gets driven a little bit. Okay, so the scanner has been connected the whole time. Let's read fault codes. The car is still running, by the way. We still have our rich codes. So oil pressure is fixed. Misfires are fixed. Misfires are not related to the rich codes. So clearly there's more work that needs to get done on this car, and if she wants to bring it back in the future to try to figure out why this thing is running rich on both banks, she can. But it's Sunday afternoon. She's actually on her way over here right now to pick up her car because she needs her car back. And frankly, I'm done looking at this turd. I'm beyond done. I don't want to see this thing for a good while. And one thing you gotta be clear with customers is being really detailed about when you're talking to them, because she asked me, are you fixing the problem with the check engine light? She did not know that there was multiple codes. She thought there was just one single code causing the check engine light. So you got to be very clear with them and tell them what's going on. I told her I'm going to fix whatever codes I can, but I'm not going to be able to fix all of them. So there's a good possibility the check engine light may come back. And you can see we have two codes here. Either they're pending or whatever. But chances are, if she's driving home and that check engine light turns on while she's on her way home, she's not surprised or caught off guard or anything like that. She's expecting the light to come on because I explained everything and I told her I fixed the codes that I can, but there's still some remaining that have not been addressed yet. That way the customer doesn't feel like she's being bamboozled or taken for a ride. You know what I mean? So she knows exactly what to expect. And like I said, if she wants to bring it back in the future, she can, and we'll dig into this a little bit further, see if I can figure it out. But that's enough talking. I've been rambling on about this. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and like always, thanks for watching.